not necessarily take it back, but pivot. And I'll say that, as far as my investments go, I'm definitely not as concerned. It comes down to like the content creation side of things.
Yeah.
Views are down significantly. That's a big thing, man. When you look at like how much time we as content creators put into our work, and then have views be down 70,
Mm-hmm.
80% from what they were just a few months ago. Like that's the biggest hit for me. The money is not necessarily, like my what I'm holding and stuff like that is not like the biggest concern, and it's not what really keeps me up at night. It's the fact that the time I'm putting into the industry like this is just not, it's not
Just didn't.
being viewed. There's just not as much interest right now across the board, so
Mm-hmm.
that translates to less interest and less views on our content as creators, and that makes me sad.
Yeah.
you know but
That is really.
decentralizing into other options, it does help to get that up, right? So streaming to
Mm-hmm.
places like, doing it multiple, like YouTube and Odyssey, and a couple other ones. I do the same thing, so it makes a lot of sense. But just trying to get it out there to people who want to hear during a bear market can
Yeah.
be tough, man, and the quite the uphill battle. I think a lot of people don't realize how much time content
Mm-hmm.
creators put into creating content. I think they just feel like, oh, like whatever, it just kind of
He
comes, and
just
like they
talks.
yeah, exactly. You just talk. It magically happens, and
Mm-hmm.
oh, and they should do it all for free too. Don't they shouldn't be
Yeah.
paid for anything they do. Like that's not. This is just a fun thing they do, right? And but I want to
Yeah.
watch them every day. you know. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean, that's a
fun.
little.
It's
It
funny
it
in that
does
sense.
get a little, a little hairy with that. Um, real quick, I am on the YouTube thing is working. And I'm doing it directly, so just the Odyssey people are getting a lot of extra fun show. But anyway, hey everyone, hey YouTube
Get like
stuff.
these decisions. It's weird because
We're finally. Well, let's talk about Terra because we were talking about yeah, because we were talking about the whole like Justin Sun Tron thing and then Terra and also about like losing
mm,
money. So a lot of people have lost a lot of money on Terra, and I did not realize this. This was not. I did not pick this is on my BitConnect bingo card stuff because I thought, stable coins don't sound like a get rich quick scheme, because it's literally pegged to the freaking dollar. I didn't think that that was kind of like where it was at. But then a lot of people like I saw a tweet like I think it was like a few days ago that at least 8 people have killed themselves over this. Like that people know have gotten so
wow.
depressed over the Luna crash that they've actually killed themselves. And like, I hate to say I understand it in cases like BitConnect, which it was a little bit of a low intellect project. I'm not trying to hate, but like, duh, And then a lot of lower information people that just didn't even hear about other crypto were just like, oh, I'm going to throw a lot of money in there, and then they get wrecked and their life is over. And I understand that a lot more, but like, who I really almost want to meet these people who put a lot of money, like enough money to where they're done. They're like really like wrecked or they're in a really bad place. Who put this into Luna? Like I
I
don't
think
know.
it comes down to like crypto and other things of this of an investment nature. They pull at the gambling nature of people. And so if people already have a gambling problem, I think that that could really fuel the fire here for something like this, right? So cutting edge technology, lots of
Mm-hmm.
gains, so that euphoria is huge when you win, but then when you lose, the hit you take there emotionally is just so much bigger. And so that
Mm-hmm.
but you get that bigger high but that bigger low, and it's the same thing with gambling, right? So
Mm-hmm.
someone going really big, they go to Vegas and they got their life savings and they bet it all on red, and they should have bet on black, damn it, and they lost. And
Yeah.
so, it's sad. I mean, I think that really does have a lot to do with it. People who would commit suicide over something like this, I think there's more factors there than just like, oh, I lost a bunch of money.
Yeah. It it I guess the real thing is a whole anchor kind of idea. Because there were stable coins before, but then anchor's like you get 20% like APY, period. That's almost like a free money type of a promise, right? To where you're
Yeah.
like, all right, I put like I have like 60 grand saved up and I can just get 20% year over year compounding on this. This is awesome. You know, that's kind of like that's kind of the weird thing. But so I don't know if you read anything about the recovery plan that they're trying to do. So for those who've been living under a freaking rock, Terra Luna, the entire ecosystem, which is it comprised two of the top 10 crypto assets by market cap, the Luna token itself, and then the UST stablecoin that was based on that. They were both in the top 10, and they're both nowhere near the top 10. But anyway, let me just read the first little paragraph here. Terraform's lab co-founder Do Kwon has tabled a proposal to preserve the Terra ecosystem following historic depegging of its algorithmic stablecoin UST and the resulting death spiral. And so basically they're going to start over the chain from scratch, like do like a new thing, and they're doing like a token airdrop to holders of the old coins and stuff. So first off, what's your hot take on this? And then what do you think are the prospects of Terra 2 coming back from the dead and like making an impact?
It sounds like a freaking movie, man. Terra 1, and then like at the end of the movie, it's a complete disaster.
Terra 2,
the
Terra harder.
Planet. Right, exactly. Yeah, the planet is destroyed. Like, but we got away in a spaceship, and we're going to go to Terra 2 and build a new colony there. I mean, to be perfectly honest, man, it's horseshit. Do Kwon screwed everybody. The dude is shady. There are a lot of things that point to him being a shady person. And there's no way. He's trying to save a little bit of face here, but there's literally no way that this is ever going to come back. It's never going to happen. It's destroyed. I mean, I understand everyone that really had big investments beyond just money, but like, developers, people in the ecosystem, projects, things like that, probably want to do something. I would say, personally, I would say that the best thing would be to fork the project. I mean, the plans that Do was talking about, like trying to recoup people and doing all that shit is not going to work, man. Maybe a fork would work, but like, I mean, work in a sense of like, okay, this was still a massive problem. Does it give anybody confidence in the fork? Like, well, you look at it, this happened with Ethereum, it was actually a hack and in general, but they forked it, and you have ETH Classic, which sucks, and then you have ETH that is still going. But ETH Classic is still around. It's still out there. It's kind of amazing, right? So when we say
how around is it?
Right, like when we say that will Luna still be around, I mean, probably. But I go look at the charts right now. ETH Classic is ranked 32 on the charts by market cap. I mean, that blows my mind, dude. That this coin is like completely useless, that nobody is building on, is still ranked in the top 50. Will Luna be able to come back? I mean, possibly, but I just at this point, man, I think that the dude at the head of the at the ship here has steered it into the ground, and I don't think there's any real coming back with his type of plan, and not the way it was ever.
Yeah. And then Crypto.com got embroiled in this whole thing because they had a glitch on their mobile app, which basically let people buy and sell on like some crazy inflated prices that like weren't representative of the crash. And so now what they're doing is they're reversing these trades where a lot of people put a lot of money into buying and selling Luna because the price was like, oh, I can buy it for this much, I can sell it for this much, and now they're just reversing it all, and some people are happy, some people are really upset.
Who the hell will be happy about that? I mean, like, really, dude. Crypto.com also crooks.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've said this time and time again, a lot of people support Crypto.com. They like that platform. Since the beginning, man, I saw this platform, I was like, okay, I'll give them a chance. And then, it's kind of following how things went along. And then, the first time that they burned their users with the whole MCO and CRO debacle, and then they just continue to do it over the last couple of years, right? Last 2 years, they continue to burn their users in multiple different ways. I mean, I wouldn't say it may be as bad as Robinhood, but, you got to eat this one, man. Your app messed up. Don't go back and try and fix things. You know what I'm saying? Like, they took advantage of bank error in their favor. Say, all right, tip the cap and say, kudos, you guys got us. You guys got one over on us. Enjoy the free money, and then go about your way, man, and take the hit. Don't try to screw your people over again because you screwed up, and then pass that screw up on to your customers. And that's one of the things that continually bugs me about Crypto.com is they have no problem doing that over and over and over again. They just did it recently with the changes in all their reward structure for their cards and things. And this, I don't know.
Well, that's the ultimate.
The wrong way.
the ultimate thing about crypto right now is, as Sergey Kotliar of Bitrefill reminded me when we chatted a couple weeks ago, he says basically the killer app of crypto is the casino so far. Like we've been saying, borderless payments, censorship resistant, this, all this kind of stuff. So far, the killer app, the thing it does better than anything else, is the casino. And it seems like the casino people are the ones who get the most traction. I mean, look at obviously the Terra debacle, but also Crypto.com. I mean, it's hard to argue that they're not very successful at this moment. They might be about to crash
No,
down.
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're not
Yeah.
successful. Crooks can be successful. We just talked
Exactly.
about that multiple times.
Yeah, they did some scumbaggery and still like Crypto.com like sponsoring everything like on like arenas and everything. They're just like they're on top of the world kind of, but a lot of this is because of like the token thing where they managed to pump. It's really kind of interesting. And yeah, that's pretty like the thing about this scumbaggery stuff is it always kind of ends up, crashing to zero on the long enough term. Probably. But what about, Binance has done some interesting things, right? Yet Binance is, a little, they're doing well, right? And I still think that they're going to continue to, probably do well. But I don't know. Do you think this is a symptom of just how early the whole thing is, the whole crypto thing is?
I mean, definitely, in our industry, we have to iterate a lot. And so I get that. So if someone releases something and then, a year or two later, they have to change and go back on that and drastically change it, I can understand that. Doesn't mean I got to like it. Doesn't mean I got to respect it. You know what I'm saying? So I get that. But we can't keep using that as an excuse to screw over our communities that we're building, right? And our customer bases that we've garnered. And say, well, things are changing, guys, and now we've done this, but I mean, we have to do that, but it doesn't mean that we have to like it, And so I think that finding the best balance of that is a very hard thing to do as a crypto company here and has been, right? So finding the best way to move forward with changes to regulation, to technology. Things move very fast in our industry and both of those areas, and so you may have to change offerings. But I think a lot of times, these companies will start off with ridiculous offerings, ridiculous numbers, like we were talking about with Anchor, where it's like, oh, you're getting 20+%. It's like, that's just not sustainable, man. You got to know that. And they know that, but that's because they're taking advantage and they know it from the get-go. It's not like these are stupid people and they're just like, oh, we didn't know what the long-term 3-year implications would be or impact. We didn't even think about that. We just threw a pickle at the window and just see if it would stick. And I think that then using that excuse of like, we didn't know, or who knew what was gonna, like, it's just it's not acceptable anymore. It's not
So
acceptable anymore.
did you see this the thing about Terraform Labs Korea being dissolved a few days before the whole thing went? Now I'm not a conspiracy person, mostly because it requires just more research that I'm like willing to do. But I don't know. Do you think there's anything nefarious with that, or is that just a coincidental like corporate restructuring kind of a thing?
Honestly, man, it's a very big coincidence.
You think it's a coincidence, but just a really big one, despite that?
No, I don't. I mean, I would say, at the very least, you could say it's a. I mean, hey, okay, maybe it's just a really big coincidence, but I'm saying it with a lot of damn sarcasm. The fact of the matter is that the more of these things you see and start to add up here, the fact that happened, that he already has a history of project abandonment and failures. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. There's so many factors here that go into this. Every little detail like this, it definitely another marker that points to like something is foul. Now, I mean, I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I'll give it 75% certainty that all these things point to the fact that there was some foul play here.
Yeah, it's I wonder what, like, obviously he bought a ton of Bitcoin, and obviously the foundation or the LFG, which everyone saw that acronym and they were like, this is a serious project, whatever. But obviously they got a lot of that. I wonder what Do Kwon manages to get out of this entire thing, because obviously
Hmm.
it's made him famous. Obviously, if he had a lot of Luna tokens at some point, he had a lot of money from there. But like, I wonder how much of this collapse he kind of knew was happening, and how many he knew would happen. Because remember, there was that story that came out that he was behind that other stablecoin project that kind of
Yeah.
crashed and burned, and he probably like knows that this is a possibility, right? That this could actually happen. Um, yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, an algorithmic stablecoin, like I said, with the assets and traits that they had with UST.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that for sure they knew that there was a possibility. That's what I'm saying, man. Someone who's
Mm-hmm.
tried to do this before, failed, and then set something up again. How
Mm-hmm.
exposed was he to Luna personally?
Yeah,
That's what I want to be interested. That's what I'm interested in. How much personally was he affected? Not financial, details
not like
from
a
his
corporate
company
thingy.
or anything like that,
Uh
or
huh.
the organization rather, but how much is he, really exposed?
Mm-hmm. I mean, how
I
much
don't
is
know,
he
man. That's what
still
I'd be interested to see
exposed?
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because if he was, everything's crashing to the ground. But I have a feeling he kind of knew something was going on. That something
I
could
have a
have.
feeling that most of his assets were probably in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and people visited his house and stuff. Like investors who'd lost a lot of money were like showed up at his house. It's like, okay, well, you wanna play that game, It just was especially funny how people were he was kind of mocking people for being poor, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, okay, this is what it's about, and it's like,
And that's the exact opposite of what our community is about here in cryptocurrency, guys. We're not about that. Like the whole point is to give everyone a more equal playing field. You have an option. You don't have to be beholden to centralized governments and centralized banking. You have an
mm-hmm,
option. Then for our community, yeah, pull out. That is one of the things I hate the most in this community, man. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that I'm not very big
yeah,
fan of, but belittling people, bullying people, putting people down, that stuff really gets to me, man. I don't like that. That's not what crypto is about. That's not what my community is about. That's not the kind of community I try and foster. And in crypto, I really feel like financially shaming people because they're poor is like the exact opposite of what we want. Do we really want an industry that's just full of a bunch of fucking whales that are just circle jerking each other and
mm-hmm,
just big dollars going all around? Like, no, man, we want this to be the people's revolution, financial revolution. That's what I want. That's what the white
mm-hmm,
paper, that's what the Bitcoin white paper really was about. That's what it
mm-hmm,
came from. Bitcoin and this everything we see today was literally created from the 2008 financial collapse because
yeah.
of what all these other people in the traditional financial system have been doing to the average poor person over the last couple hundred years in our modern society. So
There's
yeah,
always
so
someone who's
to
gonna
hear
like
that kind of
ruin it
talk
for
and to see that kind of
everyone.
stuff, it pisses me off, man.
Yeah, there's always someone like ruining it for everyone though, which is, oh, it is what it is. Yeah, so let's just let's turn it to a brighter shade of things. NFTs. For just a little bit, right? Um yeah. So, first off, I read a couple things about like there's a couple stories. We're kind of like running a little short on time right now, so I won't really go too deep into the whole thing. But
Yeah, no
there's a
worries.
couple stories about how NFTs, how there's some projects focusing on bridging NFTs into the real world, meaning
Mhm.
create NFT assets, NFT property in the in the virtual world, but then make physical items out of that. And
Sure.
so it's kind of like usually you think the opposite, right? You think you get a collector's item and then you're just like, oh, well, it comes with the NFT version too. There's an NFT of this physical collector's item. But then,
As a matter of fact, I just did that.
oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah. So I work with the Theta team. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
checked out Theta, but the competition will say almost to probably to close to Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
But I did a NFT drop on their platform when they were just getting started with their NFT ecosystem, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
NFTs I did on there was the Secret Agent Stash Agent of the Year award, which is an NFT that I sold on their platform. It's a 3D model of me, but as my character that I play on Thursdays called Secret Agent Stash. It's a whole gaming
Mm-hmm.
thing. If you haven't watched the show, it's a lot of fun. And so yeah, so the NFT is of this really great 3D model, and like it spins, and so it looks pretty cool. It's a statue, and everyone's like, "Oh, it looks great." So what I did was I made an NFT that you could then also get that NFT and then redeem it for a physical 3D printed version of that figure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm getting ready to actually ship those out to everyone who got them this month.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that is kind of like an interesting, other kind of like the other way kind of thing, because that's something that the whole metaversal, the whole metaversal thing is something that I find that especially older generations have very much of a difficulty in understanding. Like, what is
Yeah.
digital property? Because if the digital world it's not real. Like, the digital stuff doesn't exist. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like, to a lot of people, it's like a digital version of saying you own a character in a storybook. Like, but that's literally just written stuff on a piece of paper that's not real. It's just in your imagination. There's all imaginary stuff. But then you start to have, you know, I think there's just so much of our lives that are digital these days. And
Right.
yeah,
I mean, I
it's
don't
kind
know
of
how
crazy.
people, even older generation, I don't know how they can still have that stance of like
Mm-hmm.
digital things aren't real. Like, okay, if that's how you feel, I'll take all those extra zeros in your digital bank account with
Mm-hmm.
that money that's not real because it's just digital, man. It's not real
Mm-hmm.
unless you got the physical paper. It's not real, man. It's not real. I'll
Yeah.
take all those extra zeros.
It is kind of funny because it is, I suppose, a lot of people have that, like the digital world being a bridge to the physical world, and that's the only thing that gives it value. Is that, you know, it is the zeros, and you can't do represent actual paper you can get out, which, in and of
Mhm.
itself, I don't think has money value, but that's a different story. But or your communications, like you're writing an email, you're communicating with a real person at some point, or you're making arrangements to meet up in person, or like all this kind of stuff. It's like all bridges back to the physical. It's just a facilitator for the physical. But now we're getting to stuff where, for example, I'm sure plenty of people run shows, they run whatever else, they run all kinds of stuff, and they it never ends up being physical. Like, how many crypto people have you ever met in person? I'm sure there's a plenty that you've met at conferences and stuff like that, but there's also probably a lot of crypto people and NFT people that you've never like physically hung out with, but you've hung out with
Yeah.
more than just running a show, but like in just like a hangout vibe. You've done that with so many different people. Probably, I'm making assumptions here. Maybe
No,
I
yeah.
have, but like lots of people I've never met and
Hundreds
never,
and
ever,
thousands. Yeah. At
ever
this point.
will meet. And some people who I don't even know their real names or what they look like or whatever, because it's just kind of what it is. And so we have this like digital reality that is like it stays in the digital world. There's no real bridge to the real world. But then when you start bridging things back, where the only reason before it's like the only reason this NFT is valuable is because it pertains to a physical asset in some people's minds. But then you have the other thing, the only reason the physical thing is valuable is because it pertains to the NFT. And that's like a
I
mind that's kind
I
of like
don't
a
know that
mind
that's true.
reversal.
I think that a physical item can have value to somebody outside of the fact that
Mm-hmm.
it's just attached to an NFT. Even if they didn't have the NFT, they would still have the physical thing, which they could display proudly,
Mm-hmm.
and still kind of enjoy it, just like any other physical thing. Like, why do I collect Star Wars figures and shit like that? Like, I do because I like them, man. I mean, I don't know, like why do people collect anything or
Yeah.
value anything that is physical? So I don't think it need that a physical thing only has that was derived from an NFT originally only has value because the NFT exists. I think that they kind of give each other boost the value,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it boosts the value of
Yeah.
each one. So if you only have an NFT digital component and then you add a physical component to it, that boosts the value of that digital asset, right? If you have a physical component and then you add an NFT to it, that boosts the value of the physical asset of it, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
doing them at the same time, both together, I feel like that kind of maximizes both elements.
Yeah. And it is kind of funny to see people that don't have or items and things that don't have one or the other involved with them, that are just like only in one world. It's going to be very interesting to see when the world moves. more fully metaversal, how the kind of I'm kind of almost looking forward to seeing what that does for the value of certain things, because when there, demand creates value and scarcity kind of amplifies it. And
Mhm.
so right now there's a lot of the digital world that kind of deals with, a bridge to the real world, right? Because people are mostly very physical, and then there's a lot of like, well, these are real people in the real world, and we know their real name, kind of stuff. And then I wonder how many people or how many experiences will be kind of offline on purpose and exclusively offline, not referenced online anywhere, and will be extremely valuable as a result because there's so few of them. They're just you only can get into the meat space. This is meat space only. There's no metaverse. There's no nothing. There's no reference to that. And I kind of noticed this with some people, some cool people, I guess, who don't have social media presences at all. Like just don't exist on
Mhm.
social media, and they still manage things just fine. It's not like they never got with the times. They just kind of got off that, and then their time is almost more valuable because they're not always being interacted with and stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
mean,
of
I
crazy.
think that, yeah, I don't know. It's a hard thing to say. Like, well, where is it? Does the time warrant, being put into things like that? For some people, they value physical stuff over digital stuff, and that's fine. We're always going to find people who have, their different preferences. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
much a digitally focused person, but I know people who are like, I can't read a digital book. I have to have the physical copy. There's people who are just very
Mm-hmm.
tactile type of people, and they like that
Called
experience, and they
hipsters.
are two different experiences.
Yeah, it's very funny to see that kind of stuff. And I wonder, like, how much, like, when people have fully like metaversal lives, and like people start putting like a lot of their net worth into the digital, into stuff like NFTs, digital property, and then digital tokens and all that kind of stuff. Um, and a lot of people, that's kind of their whole life. I wonder. I kind of almost looking forward to like the smack talking game where people start saying, "Oh yeah, but what do you look like in the real world, man? I bet in the real world you don't have nothing." It's just like it'll be kind of funny to see, that kind of stuff, or the way people post. And at some point, I think there will be a black market for uh, digitally faked representations of real world experiences, where people will want to be that level of cool. They will want to have experienced real physical things, and there will be like making like Instagram reels or TikToks or whatever of like a cool hiking adventure with like modify with like deep faked like faces and stuff to make it look like it's them who's doing it, to like pretend to be like actually have like a physical life for extra clout of being that way. And then
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about that next generation of influence, right, with the next generation of tech. And I don't know if you
mm-hmm.
read Ready Player 2, but the concept of that book all goes into some
Mm-hmm.
what you're kind of talking about is
Yeah.
the the sharing and selling of experiences that are virtual of a nature that you can experience that other people had, that you can then take
Mm-hmm.
their experience and put it, and you're literally getting the like a fully immersive, photorealistic, beyond, what we see in VR right now kind of
Mm-hmm.
experience. So you can literally do those things. So like when you talk about, influencers and like, oh, they're going to the hottest party, and they took a grab of the entire party, and then now you can go experience what they experienced in the same exact way by downloading their
Mm-hmm.
little clip. They call it something different in Ready Player 2. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who
Mm-hmm.
hasn't read that book, but yeah, I think that that's definitely a possibility when you look at the digital versus the physical and where we're going. And physical experiences are always going to be coveted. I think that we see that with people who can travel and people who can't, right? It's gated by money.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, sometimes people just don't want to travel, they don't like to travel, but those things, having those experiences, typically require you to have money to do them. And I think that then puts a lot of experiences out of the grasp of a large swath of people out there.
Yeah.
So, being able to have the digital representation of that experience where you can experience that same thing. I can go hike Mount Everest and feel exactly like what it was to be there almost by using this system, and it's a fraction of the cost, right, for me to go
Yeah.
experience someone else's experience versus me doing it on my own.
Yeah, and that's kind of the world, like the next level to this, like the final little bit on this
Yeah.
part is uh obviously, access to the digital world is still kind of a first world, a developed world kind of a thing. And so I'm almost wondering what the democratization of the world through the virtual world is having, the effect it's having on developing countries. Like as soon as they get on the internet, all of a sudden they can just jump in and start, now they
Mhm.
can live wherever they want despite living wherever they are. But then on the other side, now how many people are there who were formerly poverty stricken, I guess, who have a purely physical world and just, you know, and now that is such a commodity because of scarcity, because so much of the world has moved online. I wonder if it's like now, hey, can I go like, can I go till the fields with you? I'll pay you like so much money to, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, because now they have this, by being excluded from the digital world for economic reasons. Now somehow they ended up with a financially valuable scarcity, which is an entirely physical life, and then now that enables them to actually come up from poverty in a weird sort of a way.
No, you're right. I mean, there could be kind of a flip when it comes to something like that. You think about the experiences people want to experience. I mean, if you're rich and you've never been
Mm-hmm.
poor, like you could experience being poor like remotely in some sort of like weird way. I don't know, man. There's a lot that can be wrapped up in that kind of
Mm-hmm.
crossover between the digital and the physical, and what will be coveted more and more in the future. Obviously we see a lot of our lives in general going more digital. People are spending
Of
more and more
course.
time every single day on devices, and I mean it starts to look a little bit like some of these somewhat dystopian movies we've seen before, right? Like I don't want, what's that one with Bruce Willis where they're in the pods all the time, and then they have avatars that are actual physical ones. There's so
Mm-hmm.
many like of these same sort of concepts that we start to see reiterating in popular science fiction, and
Mm-hmm.
then a lot of those things come true, and we see that it classically throughout the history of science fiction. So yeah, I mean, it is a little scary to kind of see some of the stuff that people have come up with, and then how what we're doing now really can
Mm-hmm.
be leading to a lot of these things, right? So I
Yeah.
think that can be kind of scary when you talk about the metaverse and unique items and bridging real world, physical
Mm-hmm.
world with digital world, using things like what we see now with like VR and AR.
Mm-hmm.
There's massive possibilities, but also huge social implications. And how is that going to affect the next couple generations?
Yeah. That is crazy. Well, that's a fantastic point to wrap this whole thing up on. Show your stuff. Where can people find you and stuff for the people that didn't catch the glitchy earlier parts?
Yeah, so you can find me at cryptostache.com, STACHE, like the mustache,
Mm-hmm.
and then anywhere that you're at online. So I'm CryptoStache pretty much everywhere. So if you're on YouTube, Twitter, Theta. You're on Instagram. I'm all there. Facebook. The only place I don't have it actually is on Twitch. So if you love Twitch, I'm there too. I stream on Twitch, all my gaming stuff. It's crypto
Mm-hmm.
stash under. It's crypto underscore stash. Some bastard stole my name on Twitch. That's the only one that I don't
Damn it.
have.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
must have been thinking purely like, money and not stash, but whatever. He's screwing up your branding, damn it. He's squatting on your what is metaversely right to you. Anyway.
That is
Huh.
true.
All right. Everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with weird glitches that for some reason have been popping up. I found out it's an OBS issue today, which, whatever. But a side note. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you guys in a few minutes. I got the Dash podcast coming up for next week. And everyone follow Stash's stuff. Follow him on Twitter. He's been tweeting a lot lately, very prolific. And yeah, follow him, and I'll see you guys in either a little bit or next week. Bye bye.